James, a broken alcoholic, had sold everything he owned. This time, he was trying to trade a starving shepherd mother and her two trembling puppies for another bottle of liquor. Liam, a 50-year-old veteran, happened to walk by, and the sight hit him hard. It reminded him of the lost children he once saw in war zones, and of his own 8-year-old autistic son who lived locked inside silence. Without hesitation, Liam paid off James's debt and brought the three dogs home. But instead of gratitude, he faced his wife's anger for bringing more burden into an already exhausted family. Yet, what happened next is something that will melt your heart. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe. The evening heat settled heavy over Dusty Creek, pressing against the crooked wooden storefronts like an old, tired hand refusing to let go. Dust swirled lazily across the dirt road, catching the amber light spilling from the rusty saloon's broken windows. The air smelled of stale beer, sweat, and the kind of hopelessness that clings to forgotten towns. Outside the saloon, James stood hunched beneath the dim porch lantern, its glow flickering against his gaunt features. He was a man carved by poor decisions. Thin shoulders, sallow skin stretched tight over cheekbones sharpened by years of whiskey instead of food. His unkempt beard was streaked with gray and grime, and his eyes, bloodshot, unfocused, carried the permanent glaze of someone who had been losing battles long before this day. He reeked of desperation and old liquor, and desperation had led him to this moment, the last thing he owned that anyone might still buy. Beside him sat a battered wooden crate holding Bella, a German shepherd mother around 4 years old, her frame lean enough that every rib could be traced beneath her fur. Her coat, once likely a proud mix of tan and black, had dulled to dusty shades of exhaustion. But her eyes remained sharp, fierce even, a burning gold that missed nothing. She positioned herself protectively in front of her two pups, Max, the bolder one with darker fur and a curious spark in his eyes, and Luna, smaller and softer in features, her pale coat quivering as she pressed close to Bella's flank. James lifted a cardboard sign he had scribbled earlier. For sale. All three. Need cash fast. His voice cracked as he called out half-heartedly to passers-by, though no one spared more than a pitiful glance. Then came the heavy crunch of boots on gravel. Liam approached from the far side of the street, his steps steady but weary, the gait of a man who'd carried too much weight for too long. At 50 years old, he had the solid, broad-shouldered build of a former soldier whose discipline lingered long after the battlefield. His hair, once dark, was now streaked with silver, kept short out of habit, and a trimmed beard lined his jaw, adding a rugged sharpness to features hardened by conflict and time. One long scar curved down his right forearm, an old injury, but the deeper scars were in his eyes, a storm-gray gaze that carried memories he rarely spoke about. Liam had come to the rusty saloon only to pick up a delivery order for supplies, but life rarely paid attention to plans. As he neared the porch, Bella caught his scent and shifted, muscles tense, her golden eyes narrowing, not in fear, but in assessment. Max let out a tiny growl, his attempt at bravery, while Luna ducked her head beneath Bella's front leg. "What are you doing, James?" Liam asked, his voice low, steady, the voice of a man who preferred calm but had been trained for storms. James rubbed his nose with the back of his hand, leaving a smear of dirt. "Gotta settle my tab," he mumbled. "Bar owners had enough of my debt. Figured, it's time to give these mutts to someone who can afford 'em." He tried to smile, but it twisted into something ugly. Liam stared at Bella, at the way her ears twitched, constantly analyzing threats, at the way she pushed Max and Luna behind her with gentle insistence. This wasn't a dog broken by hardship. This was a mother trying desperately to keep her children safe in a world that had not shown her kindness. "You're selling them to pay for whiskey," Liam said quietly. James flinched at the judgment, though he didn't deny it. Liam exhaled, slow and deep. A part of him, the part that used to make life-or-death decisions in dusty deserts far from home, awakened. It wasn't anger. It was resolve. "How much?" Liam asked. James blinked, clearly surprised someone was offering. "You'll pay? Whole tab's $80. You take the dogs, we're square." Liam didn't argue. He walked inside, slapped a wad of bills onto the counter, and returned moments later with the receipt tucked in his pocket. "Untie her," he said. James hesitated, then crouched to remove the frayed rope around Bella's neck. Bella immediately stepped backward, ears pinned, growling low. Liam knelt, lowering himself to her level, letting her smell the roughness of his palms and the sincerity of his presence. He didn't reach out, didn't force trust. He simply waited. After several long seconds, Bella's growl softened into a wary silence. Max sniffed his boot. Luna peered out from behind Bella's leg. "It's all right," Liam murmured, his voice breaking in a way he didn't expect. "You're coming home." James shrugged. "They're yours now, soldier boy." Liam carried Max and Luna in his arms and coaxed Bella toward his rusted pickup truck. She hopped onto the back seat only after ensuring her pups were safely placed inside. When Liam shut the door gently, she settled in, her presence filling the truck with a strange mixture of tension and hope. As he drove away from the saloon, the town's dusty silence swallowed the glow of the fading sun. Liam glanced at the rearview mirror. Bella's eyes were still wary, but something else flickered behind them, something that looked almost like the tiniest spark of trust. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he chose to stop in front of that saloon would become the first step in changing not just the future of 3 abandoned dogs, but the entire shape of his own family. The night air over Dusty Creek cooled only slightly as Liam's old pickup rumbled toward his small farmhouse on the outskirts of town. The headlights flickered across the wooden fence, the sagging gate, and the weary porch where a single lantern glowed like a tired sentinel struggling to stay awake. Inside the truck, Bella kept her body curled protectively around Max and Luna, their tiny breaths fogging the window as they slept. Liam's hands tightened around the steering wheel the closer he got to home. The tension in his shoulders returned like a familiar ache. He knew what waited inside wasn't danger, not the kind he had faced in the war, but confrontation. And for a man who had learned to face gunfire with calm, the thought of upsetting his wife still struck deeper than any bullet ever had. The front door opened before he even turned off the engine. Sarah stepped into the doorway, her figure backlit by warm light. She was a woman in her mid-40s with a delicate bone structure that made her appear softer than she truly was. Her auburn hair, hastily tied into a low knot, framed a face marked by fatigue rather than age. She had once been cheerful, the type who laughed with her whole heart, but years of stress had carved shadows beneath her eyes. Her hands, slender, calloused from work, rested on her hips as she waited, tension radiating from every line of her stance. "What is that?" Sarah demanded before Liam could speak. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with the frustration of someone who had been pushed too far for too long. Liam stepped out of the truck slowly. "Sarah, just hear me out." "No, not tonight," she snapped, taking a step forward, the porch creaking under her bare feet. "Tell me that sound isn't puppies. Tell me you didn't bring home more trouble when we can barely hold ourselves together." Her gaze sharpened as Bella lifted her head in the truck, ears pricked, eyes alert but not aggressive. "Sarah, this is Bella," Liam said, lowering his voice as if speaking loudly might shatter something fragile between them. "And those are her pups. They needed help." Sarah's expression flickered with something, a brief softness, but it hardened quickly. "Everything needs help, Liam. The leaking roof, the overdue bills, your knees that ache when you wake up, and Leo." Her voice faltered. Leo appeared behind her then, an 8-year-old boy with a small frame and sandy blonde hair that fell into his eyes. He wore a faded blue shirt with the seams frayed, and he gripped a toy car in one hand. His gaze stayed pinned to the ground, his shoulders drawn inward as if he wished to disappear into the floorboards. Leo rarely spoke. His world was made of routines and familiar sounds, and anything new felt like an earthquake. Liam's chest tightened. "I know we're stretched thin," he said softly, "but these dogs, they're survivors. They deserve—" "We deserve peace," Sarah cut in, her voice cracking. "We deserve stability. I've been holding this house together while you drown in your memories. I can't take care of everything. I can't take care of everyone." Her words struck deeper than she intended, and regret softened her features for a moment. She looked past Liam at the dogs, her eyes catching the trembling Luna and the brave little face of Max peeking over Bella's paw. "Where are they supposed to sleep?" she asked, her voice quieter. "In the house?" Liam tried. Sarah shook her head immediately. "Absolutely not. Leo can barely handle visitors, let alone dogs. They stay in the storage barn, and only for a week." Liam nodded, swallowing the bitterness rising in his throat. "All right, the barn, just for now." He carried Max and Luna toward the barn while Bella followed on silent paws. The storage barn wasn't much: weathered wood, stacked tools, the stale smell of hay, but Liam dusted off a corner, laid down old blankets, and filled 2 bowls with water. Bella inspected the space, circling before lying down, pulling her pups close as if anchoring them in this strange new world. Liam lingered longer than he needed to, sitting beside Bella and rubbing the scar on his arm, an unconscious habit. He whispered, "I'm sorry. This isn't what I hoped." Bella looked back at him with calm intelligence, her golden eyes neither accusing nor fearful. She simply understood. When Liam returned to the house, Sarah was wiping the kitchen counter with sharp, agitated movements. "You're sleeping inside, right?" she asked without looking up. "I'll stay out there tonight," Liam replied. Sarah froze. "Liam, don't do that." "I need them to know they're safe," he said simply. "And you need space." Her shoulders slumped. She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. Silence filled the room, thick as fog. Liam kissed Leo gently on the top of his head, though the boy didn't react, and then he stepped back into the night. He walked toward the barn, hearing the soft whimpers of Max and Luna, the steady breathing of Bella. He lay down on a makeshift cot nearby, close enough that Bella could see him if she wanted reassurance. Through the cracks in the wooden boards, moonlight crossed Bella's fur, giving her a quiet dignity. Liam closed his eyes, knowing he had just ignited a storm inside his own home, but also knowing he could not have done anything different. Saving those dogs felt like saving a forgotten part of himself. And as Bella adjusted her position, curling her body more firmly around her pups, Liam allowed himself a whisper of hope he had not felt in years. The afternoon sun hung low over Dusty Creek, its golden haze drifting across the backyard like a warm sigh settling over the earth. The Granger farmhouse, old, weather-worn, and held together by equal parts love and exhaustion, rested beneath the soft glow, its wooden planks creaking gently as if dreaming of quieter years. Liam was fixing a loose latch on the tool shed while Sarah chopped vegetables in the kitchen, her movements stiff and rhythmic, the motions of a woman carrying more burdens than her frame seemed built for. Inside the house, Leo sat alone on the back porch steps, his small shoulders curved inward, his sandy hair falling over his downturned gaze. He wore the same faded blue shirt as the day before, clinging to routines the way others clung to lifelines. His legs swung slowly above the step, the toy car in his hand rolling back and forth across his knee in a perfect, repetitive line that he didn't dare break. In the storage barn, Max and Luna had grown restless. Max, the bolder pup with dark fur and bright, curious eyes, paced around the straw-strewn floor, sniffing at everything, tail twitching. Luna, smaller and tender in demeanor with a pale coat that caught even the weakest light, watched her brother with gentle uncertainty. Their mother, Bella, rested in a corner, her head raised, ears flicking to every distant sound. She was always listening, always calculating as though her mind existed in 2 worlds at once, the peaceful home she now lived in and the harsher one that had taught her vigilance. As Liam hammered the shed door, Max darted toward a crack in the barn wall. A loose board shifted. The tiny pup slipped through, Luna following instinctively. In a streak of fur and excitement, both pups toddled across the backyard toward the porch. Liam didn't notice. He was bent over his work, lost in the steady rhythm of duty. Leo did. His eyes widened when Max stopped inches from his bare foot and sniffed the hem of his pants. Luna approached more slowly, ears low, tail wiggling in hopeful caution. Instead of barking or bounding, both pups eased themselves down onto their bellies in front of the boy. Max inched forward and nudged his nose gently against Leo's hand. The toy car froze mid-roll. Leo's breath hitched, his shoulders tensed. For a moment, Liam's warnings, Sarah's fears, and the chaos of the world pressed into Leo's fragile bubble. But Max didn't push. Luna didn't climb onto him. They simply stayed, waiting, breathing softly. Leo looked, really looked, at Luna's big brown eyes, and something inside him loosened. His fingers trembled, then slowly lowered until they brushed the soft fur of her head. Luna leaned into the touch as gently as a whispered prayer. Sarah, chopping carrots by the window, caught the scene in the corner of her eye. She froze mid-motion, knife hovering above the board. Her breath left her in a broken exhale. She hadn't seen Leo smile in years, not a real one, not the kind that reached the faintest corners of his mouth. But now, watching him stroke Luna's fur, she saw it, the smallest, purest curve of joy, fragile enough to shatter her heart and mend it all at once. As she pressed a hand to her mouth, Bella appeared at the barn door. The shepherd mother trotted toward the porch with the proud authority of a seasoned guardian. Her fur glimmered under the fading sunlight, revealing scars hidden deep beneath the thick coat, scars of old training, fear, long nights, and lost people. But here she moved with purpose, her head lifting as she caught a faint shift in the breeze. Suddenly, Bella's ears perked sharply. She padded toward the back door and scratched it twice, letting out a low, throaty woof. Sarah wiped her hands and stepped outside. "Bella? What is it?" The shepherd lifted her nose to the sky, sniffed, then barked once with urgent clarity. A beat later, thunder rumbled far off beyond the hills. "Rain," Sarah whispered. Bella barked again. Realization hit. The clothesline. Sarah sprinted across the yard, gathering shirts and blankets as heavy clouds rolled over the fields far faster than expected. By the time she rushed back to the porch, a cold gust swept through Dusty Creek, stirring dust and leaves into tiny, frantic dances. "Good girl," she breathed, kneeling to rub Bella's ears. Bella leaned into the touch, accepting it quietly. But Bella's instincts didn't stop with weather. 2 days later, as Leo wandered near the side of the barn, Bella sprang up from her resting place and bolted toward him, barking sharply. Startled, Liam dropped the bucket he was carrying and darted after her. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat as she saw Leo recoil in fear. Then she saw it, the sinuous shadow slithering across the dirt. A rattlesnake, its rattle buzzing like a deadly warning. Bella placed herself between the snake and the child, her posture taut, her bark fierce but controlled. Liam grabbed Leo and pulled him back just as the snake coiled. Bella let out a deep growl that sent the creature retreating into the grass. Sarah collapsed to her knees, clutching Leo. Her trembling hands brushed Bella's fur as tears streaked down her face. "Thank you. Thank you." But the moment that truly changed her came a week later. The family slept through a humid night when Bella jolted awake in the barn. Liam, nearby on his cot, stirred as Bella whined sharply and trotted toward the house, scratching the kitchen door repeatedly. Inside, the faintest hiss filled the air, the gas stove valve left open after dinner. Bella barked, urgent and loud. Liam burst in moments later, eyes widening as he smelled the gas. He flung the windows open while Sarah carried Leo outside, shaking with fear. Only when the danger passed did Sarah kneel in the grass and wrap her arms around Bella, burying her face in the dog's fur. "You saved us," she whispered. "You're part of this family. All of you are. From that night forward, Sarah no longer saw Bella as a burden. She saw her as a protector, a blessing, and perhaps the guardian angel her struggling family had desperately needed. The morning light in Dusty Creek spilled over the horizon in thin, hesitant streaks, the kind that crept gently across rooftops as though afraid to disturb whatever peace the night had left behind. The Granger farmhouse sat quiet beneath the soft dawn glow, its wooden boards warmed by pale sunlight and its windows reflecting the calm of a family learning to breathe again. Inside, Leo sat cross-legged on the living room rug, rolling his toy car in slow, perfect lines while Max and Luna napped on either side of him, their tiny chests rising and falling in steady rhythms. Sarah, leaning against the doorway with her arms folded gently, watched the scene with a soft smile, the kind she never thought she'd wear again. Bella lay nearby, her head raised, ears shifting like radar dishes each time a distant noise pricked her awareness. Her fur had regained some sheen thanks to days of proper meals and nights without fear. Yet beneath her calm exterior lingered the sharp intensity of a creature who had once lived with danger as a constant companion. Liam noticed that every time the wind rustled too sharply or a car engine revved unusually long on the road, Bella's posture stiffened. A low hum of old instincts lived inside her, and though Liam didn't fully understand it, he respected it. The day was ordinary, peaceful in a way the family desperately needed, until a foreign sound rolled across the dusty road leading toward their property. It was the low growl of a heavy engine, steady and controlled, not the sputtering chatter typical of local vehicles. Bella snapped to attention. Her ears pinned forward, and she stood from her resting spot with a quiet urgency that made Liam's pulse kick. Down the long dirt driveway, an SUV as black as a thundercloud approached, sunlight glinting off its polished metal. It didn't belong in Dusty Creek. No one drove something that expensive or that tinted unless they wanted to hide their intentions. The car rolled to a slow stop near the fence. From the driver's seat emerged Victor Hale, a man whose presence could have darkened the brightest morning. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a predatory stillness in the way he stood. His hair was jet black, slicked back with meticulous precision, though streaks of gray hinted at stress or cruelty, or both. His face carried sharp angles, cheekbones like carved stone, a strong jaw shadowed by a close-shaven beard, and dark eyes that held the cold calculation of someone who had long ago traded empathy for power. A faint scar ran along his left temple, disappearing into his hairline, the kind earned from a life of violence and survival. His tailored charcoal jacket contrasted with the dusty countryside, and each movement he made felt deliberate, infused with the quiet dominance of a man used to command and fearful obedience. He walked toward the fence with smooth, unhurried steps, as if he already owned whatever stood before him. Liam stepped out onto the porch, wiping his hands on his jeans. His posture straightened instinctively, military discipline rising to the surface like a reflex. "Can I help you?" Liam asked, though something in his gut whispered that the man hadn't come for help. Victor's gaze slid past him and landed on Bella, who had moved to stand at Liam's side. The shepherd's body stiffened. Her tail hung low but not submissive, more like a coiled spring ready to strike. Her golden eyes locked on Victor with unmistakable recognition. "I believe you have something that belongs to me," Victor said, his voice smooth as oil but carrying an undertone sharp enough to cut. Liam's jaw tightened. "I don't think so." Victor's lips curled into a slow, predatory smile. "That dog, you call her Bella, don't you? She wasn't always yours. Not long ago she was part of a specialized team, a K-9 unit trained for high-level tracking and detection." Bella let out a low growl, soft but filled with warning. Victor glanced at her with amusement, as if pleased she remembered him. "She went missing months ago," Victor continued, "and she took something valuable with her." Liam didn't move. She didn't take anything. She was abandoned, abused, left for dead. Victor shrugged as if cruelty were a trivial inconvenience. Some dogs don't understand loyalty. Fortunately, I do. His eyes narrowed slightly. There's a microchip in her collar. Holds information that could complicate things for me. Liam's blood went cold. You're mistaken, he said firmly. Victor stepped closer to the fence, his shadow stretching long across the dry grass. A drunk named James sold her. He was very cooperative when I asked questions. His smile was thin and cruel. I know she's here, and I'll be retrieving her soon. Liam stepped forward, shifting subtly to block Bella with his body. You need to leave. Now. Victor studied Liam the way a hunter studies a rival predator, calculating strengths, seeking weaknesses. Then he nodded once, as if granting temporary mercy. I will leave your property today, he said softly, but not without what's mine. One way or another, I will return. He turned and walked back to the SUV with chilling calm. As the vehicle rolled away, Bella pressed her head against Liam's leg, trembling, not from fear, but from memory. Liam placed a steady hand on her back. You're safe here, he murmured. But even he didn't fully believe it, because the shadows Bella had fled were coming back for her, and this time, they knew exactly where she lived. Night settled heavily over Dusty Creek, the kind of darkness that pressed against the windows like a warning. The Granger farmhouse lay in a pool of moonlight, peaceful on the outside but restless within. Liam had spent the evening double-checking the locks, the fences, even the gate hinges. Not out of paranoia, but out of the sharp instinct that had kept him alive through 2 tours overseas. Bella sensed it too. The German shepherd paced from porch to hallway with silent precision, her golden eyes sharpened, her ears twitching at sounds too faint for human hearing. Max and Luna slept curled beside Leo's bed on a folded blanket, their tiny bodies rising and falling in tandem with the boy's breathing, as though they had synchronized themselves to him. Sarah watched from the doorway, arms crossed, torn between fear and hope. The clock struck midnight with a single, dull clang that echoed through the walls. At that exact moment, Bella froze. Her muscles stiffened, tail lowered, and she released a deep, vibrating growl that rumbled across the wooden floor. Liam, who had been sitting on the couch cleaning an old pocket knife, looked up immediately. "What is it, girl?" he whispered. But Bella had already moved. She bolted toward the back door, claws scraping wood, barking, short, sharp warnings unlike anything she had voiced before. A second later, Liam heard it too, the crunch of tires rolling across gravel with deliberate slowness. No headlights, no engine hum beyond a whisper. Shadows moved at the edge of the property. Liam's pulse surged. He ran toward the bedroom. "Sarah, get Leo, now!" Sarah jolted upright, fear flashing through her dark eyes. She swept Leo into her arms, the boy still clutching his toy car in his sleep, and hurried toward the small pantry room Liam had outfitted with reinforced hinges years ago. "Go," Liam urged, pulling the heavy door shut behind them. A sound broke through the silence, metal scraping metal. Then a window in the kitchen shattered inward. They were here. 3 figures slipped inside like wraiths. Each wore dark clothing and gloves, their silhouettes tall, lean, and practiced. Leading them was Harlan Briggs, one of Victor's lieutenants, a wiry man with a long, fox-like face, narrow jaw, and a scruffy beard that framed a mouth set in permanent disdain. His blond hair was cropped unevenly as though cut with a dull blade, and his blue eyes carried the reckless hunger of someone who found thrill in violence. A faded tattoo of a dagger ran along his left forearm, an emblem of the gang he'd sworn loyalty to. Behind him were 2 more men. Mason Trent, broad-shouldered, thick-necked with shaved hair and a heavy brow. His expression was flat, almost bored, the look of a man who'd spent too many years breaking bones for money. And Reggie Cole, wiry, jittery, with pockmarked cheeks and thin lips that never stopped twitching. His restlessness made him unpredictable, dangerous in a way even his companions didn't trust. "Find the dog," Harlan hissed. "Victor wants her alive. The rest doesn't matter." But Bella had already leapt into action. From the hallway she lunged with a thunderous snarl, her body a streak of muscle and fury. Harlan barely dodged as she snapped at his arm, forcing him to stumble backward. Mason swung a metal pipe at her, but Bella twisted away with trained agility, teeth bared, grounding herself like a soldier preparing to strike again. Her bark was no longer warning. It was war. Upstairs, Max and Luna scrambled awake. Their ears shot up, their bodies quivered with instinct. Before Leo could even fully open his eyes, Max darted to the door, pawing it, whining. Luna followed, pressing her tiny body protectively against Leo's leg. Downstairs, Liam grabbed the old shotgun he kept above the fireplace. Not loaded with anything lethal, just rubber shells for farm predators. Still enough to knock a grown man down. He stepped into the hallway just as Bella launched toward Mason again. The big man swung the pipe, grazed Bella's shoulder, sending her stumbling. Liam fired. The rubber slug slammed into Mason's gut, folding him like a collapsing tent. Reggie lunged at Liam from the side with a knife. Before he could reach him, a blur of tan and black barreled down the stairs. Bella had recovered. She crashed into Reggie with full force, knocking the knife from his hand. Upstairs, the pantry door shook under Leo's trembling hands. Sarah pressed a hand over his mouth gently, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Daddy's here. Bella's here." But danger climbed the stairs. Harlan, quick and cunning, had slipped away from the chaos and was heading toward Leo's room with silent, predatory steps. He reached the landing, knife drawn, and then 2 tiny bodies hit him. Max and Luna hurled themselves at his legs, teeth bared, yipping fiercely. Harlan cursed as he stumbled, swatting them away. He raised his knife. "Hey!" Liam sprinted up the stairs and tackled Harlan against the wall. They grappled, the knife slicing through air. Bella lunged up from behind, clamping her jaws around Harlan's sleeve, yanking him off balance. Downstairs, sirens wailed in the distance. Sarah's call had finally been answered. Red and blue lights flickered through the windows moments later. The police stormed the house. Mason and Reggie were dragged out in cuffs. Harlan was pinned under Liam's knee, panting, arm bleeding where Bella had caught him, and outside, Victor, who had been watching from the SUV, was wrestled to the ground by officers who had blocked his escape route. Bella limped toward Leo as officers carried the men away. The boy emerged slowly, his small hand reaching out. Bella lowered her head into it, exhausted but unbroken. Liam wrapped an arm around Sarah, who trembled with relief. The storm had come for them. Hard, violent, and merciless. But they had stood together, and they had survived together. The morning after the raid rose slowly over Dusty Creek, its light softer than usual, as if the sun itself understood the house had survived something grave and was careful not to shine too harshly. The Granger farmhouse, battered window frame, creaking porch, and tired roof, stood quietly beneath the pale gold sky. For the first time in months, Sarah, Liam, Leo, and the 3 dogs slept without fear. The silence was not the tense quiet of uncertainty, but a warm stillness, tender as a held breath. Inside, Bella lay curled at the foot of the couch, her body wrapped protectively around Max and Luna. A faint limp, still visible from the fight, marked her steps, but her expression carried something new. Peace. Leo, in his blue pajamas, shuffled across the living room with the timid steps of a boy who had learned to move carefully through life. He paused beside Bella and gently touched her back. The shepherd lifted her head and pressed her nose into his palm, exhaling a soft huff that made him smile. Liam stood in the doorway, arms crossed, shoulders slumping with relief rather than exhaustion for once. His worn features, lined eyes, rugged jaw, streaks of gray in his short hair, softened with gratitude. He had not slept much, too many memories of war entangled with the violence of the previous night, but seeing Leo by Bella's side made something inside him settle. Sarah moved beside him, leaning lightly into his arm. Her auburn hair was messy, her eyes still tired, but her face held a softness he had not seen in years. A knock sounded at the door. Not harsh or hurried. Professional. Liam opened it to find Officer Hayes, a middle-aged lawman with broad shoulders, graying beard stubble, and a deep voice shaped by decades of speaking calmly in dangerous situations. Hayes had been the one to handcuff Victor the night before. His Navy uniform was pressed, badge polished, and a faint scar cut across his chin, the kind earned from chasing criminals through far worse places than Dusty Creek. Behind Hayes stood Detective Miriam Cole, a tall, lean woman in her early 40s with sharp hazel eyes and long black hair braided neatly behind her. Her posture radiated discipline and empathy simultaneously, a rare combination. "Morning, Liam," Hayes said, tipping his hat slightly. "We wanted to speak with you and your dog." Bella lifted her head, alert but calm. Liam stepped aside, allowing the officers in. Detective Cole crouched near Bella, careful not to reach for her immediately. "Beautiful girl," she murmured. Up close, one could see her gentle demeanor. Warm freckles across her nose, steady breathing, eyes both analytical and kind. A person shaped by the justice system, but not hardened by it. "This is the dog we've been searching for." She held up a small scanner and hovered it near Bella's old collar. A soft beep filled the room. The detective's expression shifted. Respect, then something deeper. "This confirms it. Bella was part of a K-9 task unit assigned to intercept a weapons trafficking line. She went missing after a violent ambush. We believed she'd been killed." Sarah inhaled sharply, placing a hand over her mouth. Liam crouched beside Bella, rubbing her neck gently. Detective Cole continued, "That microchip she carried, the information inside helped our team map Victor Hale's entire distribution network. Combined with what we seized last night, his operation is done." Officer Hayes gave a small, grateful nod. "Your dog saved more than just your family." Leo knelt beside Bella and wrapped both arms around her neck. Bella closed her eyes, leaning into the embrace as if she had been waiting for this moment all her life. Detective Cole watched the boy, her gaze softening. "There's another part of our visit." She glanced at Hayes, then back to Liam and Sarah. "Technically, Bella belongs to the department. Under protocol, she would return to service or be reassigned." Sarah's hand tightened around Liam's. She took a step forward, voice trembling. "She saved my son's life. She saved all of us. She belongs here." Leo looked up, his small voice barely a whisper. "Bella stays." It was the first full sentence he had spoken in months. Sarah gasped, covering her mouth, tears blurring her vision. The detective froze for a moment, stunned, then smiled. A real smile. Quiet, warm, resolute. "Well," she said, straightening, "protocol also allows for retirement in special cases." She took a slow breath. "And I can't think of a more deserving home than this one." Sarah's knees buckled with relief, and Liam caught her, holding her close as she sobbed softly into his shoulder. Bella barked once, a bright, triumphant sound, before nosing Max and Luna, as though announcing their future was safe. Leo stood, placed both hands on Bella's face, and whispered a new word, his voice trembling like the beginning of music. "Friend." The room fell silent, overwhelmed by the fragile miracle of a child's first bridge toward the world. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she knelt beside her son, hugging him, hugging Bella, hugging everything that had once felt broken, but now felt whole. Liam wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time since returning from war, he felt grounded, not drifting between past and present, but standing firmly in a future he wanted to stay for. The officers quietly stepped outside, giving the family space. As they left, Detective Cole paused on the porch and whispered, "Take good care of her." "We will," Liam said. Inside, the Granger family held each other, surrounded by 3 wagging tails and the steady heartbeat of hope. Their home, once a place of tension and unspoken fears, was now a sanctuary, bound by courage, unexpected miracles, and the unconditional loyalty of 3 guardian angels with 4 paws. And for the first time in years, the Granger house felt complete. In the quiet settling after the storm, one truth stood unshaken. Sometimes healing does not come with thunder, miracles do not arrive on golden chariots, and God's grace does not always shout. More often, it whispers through unexpected messengers. In this story, it came on 4 paws, wrapped in fur, loyalty, and love that asked for nothing in return. Bella, Max, and Luna were not just dogs. They were reminders that God's miracles often walk beside us long before we recognize His hand in them. They showed a broken boy how to smile again, stitched a tired marriage back together, and carried a weary soldier home to himself. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden gently within their journey, that heaven sometimes sends its help in humble shapes, that we are never as alone as we think, and that grace still visits the ordinary lives of ordinary people in ways we can't predict but deeply need. If this story touched you, share it with someone who might need a reminder that goodness still finds its way through the cracks. Leave a comment, tell us your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of hope, resilience, and the quiet miracles woven into everyday life. May God watch over you, your loved ones, and every soul searching for a little light in the darkness.